Hello and welcome back to In Your Ward, the TV show here at TVC 22, where we make our way through the variety of wards here in Clarence Rockland and chat to each of our local councillors. Today we are in Ward number 5 with Councillor André Lalonde. How are you, André?
Hi, Thomas. It's a bit warmer than it was last time I saw you.
Yeah, we were down at a sugar shack and it was mighty nippy.
In French Canadian, we call that fret.
Yeah, I was going to say froid is something I knew from France, but fret is very much a new word for me.
Anything lower than -20 we consider fret in Canada.
So just for the listener out there, our first conversation, which can be found on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel, did occur in French. So as we're doing one in both languages. So today the conversation is in English. We've got a topical subject to tackle in the second half. But just for the benefit of the English viewers today, I just want to ask you some similar stuff to what we spoke about last time, André. So first of all, can you tell me how long you've been on the local council here?
I was first elected in 2014. So this is my second term. I'm in my 7th year. It's flown by, like I told you last time, very quickly. So a year and a half left to go before the end of the mandate. So I've always been politics junkie, if you will. So I keep myself apprised of provincial, federal, municipal matters all the time. So this was a natural fit. I wanted to jump into the race in 2010, but I had a couple of personal projects to get done before that. One of which is the park we're standing in right now, and the other one was building my house. So I had a full plate already, so I figured, okay, I'll wait till 2014 and in 2014, I really decided to run. At the time, I mean, city council was a mess. The city was a mess. Too much infighting, too much. I mean, we don't have to relive the past, but I mean, it's everyone who was here during that time has nothing positive to say about it. So a lot of us, including the current members that we already have on council, decided to run again. Or to run for the first time in some cases. And so we spent the first 2 years, I believe, trying to fix some of the stuff that had happened in the past and everything, and trying to get a hold of, what it was to be a city councillor and what it was to be a council member and make decisions. And as you're trying to learn the job, you also have a lot of eyes on you because of past council. So yeah, it was fun to run in 2014. I didn't have to run in 2018 because apparently nobody wanted the job. So I was acclaimed in my ward. So which was fine. I mean, I take it as a vote of confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
the fact that the people are trusting in the work you'd done previously.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And or just general content that things were running municipally as best as they could. So yeah, so in 2013 I was part of the group here that built the park that we're standing in, the Jules-Saumure Park. Gilles was a longtime firefighter for the old canton de Clarence before the amalgamation in 2000, I believe it was. And he died in 2005. So in his memory, the committee, we were a committee of nine residents that lived in the houses you see behind you. So we decided to build the park with the help of the city. And if you look at the sign over there, you can see all the sponsors and how important this project was for the community. I mean, we raised close to $200,000 in the community in matching funds from a foundation.
Fantastic.
So I mean, it was beyond our expectation. And the splash pad behind over there was built a few years after, but the rest was all built. The trees, everything else, actually was built in the span of 5 days.
No way.
Yeah. So the first couple of days were I think it was like a Thursday and a Friday. That's when the welders came in and welded this stuff underneath to make sure, the stuff that's more delicate and more maybe a bit more dangerous. So you need certified people to do it. And then on the Saturday, we had about 300 volunteers here from the community and city staff, and the rest of it went up, including 11 truckloads of sand that was wheelbarrowed in place.
Wheelbarrowed in individually, fantastic.
So
crazy to think about the idea of 300 community members gathering around a park these days, isn't it? We haven't seen it in such
exactly.
a long time.
That was before COVID, of course,
Yeah.
and hopefully, you know, in maybe next year or the year after that, we can go back to being able to do some stuff like that, and if people, you know, get vaccinated and things go back to normal. So. Yeah, I'm just going to plug it in there. I mean, people, you know, get vaccinated. It's the way we're going to get out of this. There's no ifs and buts about it. And you know, try to social distance as much as you can. Follow the guidelines. I mean, we've been saying that since March of last year. It's still true today.
Yeah.
And so we're still in the midst of our third wave in Ontario here. It's not so bad right now in Clarence-Rockland. I mean, we do have some cases, but it's not, we haven't peaked as much as we peaked with the second wave in January. So keep up the good fight. And when it's your turn to get vaccinated, sign up and let's get her done.
Absolutely, we're seeing a great effort with that as well. Andre, before we end this first little chat about yourself and obviously this fantastic project that you were involved with here as well, looking ahead to, as you said, there's about a year and a half left. Are you thinking about presenting yourself again? Are you thinking about going for a bigger role? I mean, I know there's talks of a variety of people maybe going for the mayor position as well. Is that something you're interested in?
Well, yeah, I mean, Mayor Desjardins, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think it's safe to say he doesn't want to return. Mm-hmm. And there's been some indication from other council members that they're, you know, willing to entertain the idea. Myself, for me personally, I haven't made a 100% decision either way of what I want to do. I'm leaning towards not returning so far, but I mean, it's still, like you say, it's still a year and a half away.
Absolutely.
People have been telling me you know, I'm doing good work and being able to do what we're supposed to do, and I like the work I do. It's just, it's been 7 years, and I've accomplished pretty much the entire list of things that I had set out in 2014 that I wanted to get done. So either way, I can say that my tenure as a councillor has been a success. Mm-hmm. for the things that I wanted to get done. So if I walk away, I walk away. If I run again, it's because I have, you know, other projects I want to get done. So final decision has not been made yet.
All right, well, we'll keep pestering you with that. And for now, let's take a short little break, and we're going to go for a little walk over there and tackle our local topical subject for this week. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a second. You join me, Andre? Hello and welcome back to In Your Ward here. I'm with Councilor André Lalonde from Ward 5. Today in the second half of this show we're going to be discussing a certain subject, this one being daycare services, which have of course elicited a little bit of controversy over the past couple of weeks amongst some residents. The goal from the city was to reduce the deficit of the daycare services to meet the allocated financial goals set in the 2020-2021 budget. And to do this there were two options, which was A, either to reduce the service, or B, to increase the cost for the residents. The city have chosen the latter. So Andre, obviously a fair amount of this was discussed during the council meeting a couple of weeks ago, and a little bit again in the council meeting this week, but most of it was in French. And I'm going into French now immediately, seeing as...
You're not helping our case here.
I'm not helping it at all. Seeing as we're having a chat in English today, I thought we would go over some of it again in English and maybe provide some clarity to the Anglophone residents here in Clarence-Rockland. I do understand as well that some of the questions I'm going to be asking you might involve some statistics which may be better best suited for the administration.
Yeah.
No judgment on that at all, just defer it. I'm hopefully talking to the administration about it in a couple weeks' time when certain members return again. So I can tick those off my list and make sure that those are asked to the people with the books in front of them. So Andre, first of all, just on a wider context, why was there less money essentially allocated to the municipal daycare services this year? What's the reason behind this change if there's $100,000 to make up?
Well, it's not that there was less money allocated. It's just costs keep going up. So generally, if you look at and again, Director Jubainville, when he comes back from his, we're going to call it a holiday. Although I'm not sure.
So it's a staycation, isn't it?
His wife is not going to say the same thing when there's two additional kids in the room. So, 85% of daycare costs are salary and benefits for Clarence-Rockland. So, you know, any organization will tell you anything over 65 or whatever, you're getting yourself into a situation where you have to make harder decisions, right? So, and we're lucky in the sense that our daycares are within our own local schools, so we don't actually pay rent. So the 15% is what we have to work with to buy toys and buy supplies and buy everything else that the daycare providers are able to do with the kids. So I mean, it's not a whole lot of money, and so that's where we. So when those costs go up, or in this case, we have on a typical, like pre-COVID, we had 800 clients. We're up to about 400 right now for various reasons. People are working from home. People have moved or whatever. So the need is less.
Yeah.
But it's not like it changes weekly, right? Because you have certain ratios that you have to have in every group. So for I'm going to call them the little bambinos, like the little babies. I think it's 18 months and up to 2 years or something, to 3 years. I'm not sure exactly what the range is, but so that ratio is one caretaker per 5 kids.
Yes. Yeah.
So your preschoolers are 1 for 8, and your morning and night shifts for before and after school are 1 to 14 or 1 to 15. So obviously, when you have, and we have 8 daycares in Clarence-Rockland. So we have 4 in Rockland and 4 in the rural hamlets. So if you would have like everyone in the same group, like 8 or 100 or 400, it's much easier to manage your ratios, right? Because we have so many kids that are bambinos, so we need how many educators? It's tough to do that when you're in the rural sector, because you don't have as many kids to make up those shortfalls. So, and in the case of the bambinos and the preschoolers, well, your ratio is much tighter to be able to make ends meet. So I'm not sure exactly what that ratio is to come cost even, but it's when you lose a kid or two during the week, or if someone either changes groups or changes locations or decides to go another route, you don't make up, like the next day there's not another kid that shows up. Sometimes it can take up to 2 weeks before the process happens and the next one on the list is called and blah blah blah. So you have financial shortfalls. So that 100,000 is part of that. Moving around. We have 800 clients. Let's say 600 families. So it's and those families make decisions like we do every week. So that's where the thing happens, and that's where the ratio and the missing or the adjustment that needed to get done.
You mentioned shortfalls there. Is there a certain deficit the city is in with daycares? As I'm sure this isn't something that's occurred overnight. I'm sure this number has been going on for a while.
Well, like I said, it's always a moving target every week. So they have to adjust the schedules and adjust how many people they need to take care of. So, and like last year, we made a deficit of $700,000. We were lucky that the provincial government and the federal government came to the rescue to all municipalities and said, okay, we're going to help you with certain costs. You heard the city of Ottawa was like $200 million in debt last year because of all those services like buses and daycare and everything else. So every municipality was in the same boat.
Obviously, $700,000, as you say, a lot of municipalities were in the same boat. It was extraordinary circumstances given the year we all had in 2020. Yeah. But is $100,000 really going to be covering this, or is the city still going to be experiencing a shortfall of some kind?
Well, there's a strategy here that when they're trying to develop that, it's going to, when I was talking about the ratios, to make sure that we follow the ratios before creating like another group or another group of kids and stuff. So to make sure that our forecasts that we have at the beginning of the year we can actually do, and so that's basically it is trying to make up that shortfall, and there's a municipal share that is always been that has to be taken every year because we can't be in deficit. Like the city as a whole. Municipal governments cannot go into deficits. It's not like the provincial government or the federal government who go $1 billion in debt or deficits. We can't. We have to come up with a zero balance at the end. So if you let certain things go into deficit, well, you have to cut somewhere else.
In terms of making up this number in particular here at daycares, we know that the option that's been gone with, there are 4 reductions, which we maybe can touch on in just a second. But the other option would have been to increase costs across the board for everyone. And I believe that number was around about 2.5%. Was this ever offered as an option to parents to sort of say, I know the city reached out to the parents to talk about the changes, but was it ever said that these are our 2 options, changes like this or an increased cost everywhere, just to sort of maybe get that unanimous view and voice to say this?
I mean that's a good point. But we got out of 800 clients, well, 800 kids, let's say 600 clients, because certain families have more than one kid at the daycare. We got 19 comments for those 4 changes, 19, and of those 19, about a third of them. The comments they made were valid. I mean, you're allowed as a taxpayer to make it, to voice an opinion, and that's fine. Myself as a councillor, yourself, we're allowed to voice our comments. But a third of those comments were either people who don't use a daycare, or the comments that were made were not affecting their particular situation. So when you look at that and you say, okay, well, it's either that or we hike by 2.5 or 2%, I'm not sure what it was, which was the other option, I guarantee you we would get a lot more than 19 comments if we'd spread the load as we've always been doing. And that's the thing, is that certain groups are more expensive to run, and you don't want to cut those groups, right? You still want to have some type of level of service to help. I mean, the role of daycare is to get the parents back to work, and that's better for the economy, and for the city. So, but that was the realization, is that, okay, well, and every year when we go 2.5% or 2%, we get hundreds of comments from parents that are really upset. And when you look at as you stated, we're in a pandemic, things are difficult and stuff, and you have to make difficult decisions. I mean, that was I guess you could call it the lesser of 2 evils, if it's not the appropriate wording, but I mean, that's what it came down to. I mean, you're affecting a very small portion of the clients, or you're affecting every single parent and every single family that's affected. So it's some decisions are not easy to do at city council. It's fun to say, oh yeah, we're going to spend $150,000 and build a splash pad.
Yes, yeah.
Who's going to argue with that? But as soon as you hike user fees, or you make a service level adjustment or something like that, you're going to affect people. You're going to affect certain families, or certain portions of the population, and that's unfortunately, as a city councilor or any elected official, you're elected. It's fun to make the easy decisions, but you're also elected to make the harder ones.
And speaking of those harder ones, obviously here, I think some of the frustration that would have been felt by some families is that there was less than a week essentially to put their comments in. You said there were 19 input, and I believe during the council meeting it said there was 27 odd pages of it, which is a vast amount of paperwork for the councillors and the administration to go through and really be able to critique all of these. But then when it came down to the council, there was the council meeting itself, which is the only public access people have to view this discussion. There was about a 15-minute conversation on this, at which a lot of things were just waived and said, no, we don't have no choice over this anyway, so it's happening. So in terms of the democratic process, what do you say to these families, these parents who perhaps are out there feeling like, well, you gave me 6 days in the middle of a stay-at-home order to be able to give comments. I took time and I took care over input, telling you exactly how this is going to financially affect me and my family. And I know 19, but as you said, as you stated earlier, 19 were affected by this in quite serious ways as well. But then to them, it feels like these worries were kind of brushed aside. I mean, could you tell us a little bit more about the process that was taken to make sure that these were all taken into consideration?
So my understanding of how the process actually worked out in this case, and that may be part of the problem, is that, as you know, we do two sessions before a final vote is done. So you have the plenary session where the discussion happens, and then 2 weeks later the final vote on the issue. So perhaps what could have been done earlier from the department side is reach out much earlier to the parents when they knew that this was coming along, and send out a notice and advise council that the notice is going out, just because automatically people will reach out to their city councilors. I myself had 2 emails on the matter, one that was directed at the administration and I was CC'd, and one that actually reached out to me, just me, and I shared that information with the department afterwards. So perhaps in order to avoid that type of thing happening in the future, is to have a longer period of consultation with the parents or with the body of constituents that are affected by a certain change. Maybe that's a solution to be. Maybe it's something we need to pick up with the administration to see if that's something that can be done on a more systematic way of planning.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that there are some parents out there that will still be reconsidering some of this. As I said, I don't want to jump too much into the details specifically of what happened. I will obviously address those a little bit more with the administration themselves. But these changes they're reducing the number of days. So when we're saying we're not increasing cost, the cost per day has still increased, hasn't it? So how can the city, considering there was a $700,000 shortfall last year, there's been shortfalls all along, and cuts need to be made. We're not here to argue that.
Well,
we understand that.
It's always a combination of either service level adjustments or something, increase of fees or whatever. It's just the way.
I think the big question here would remain the fact that if these cuts do need to occur, they would be coming into place on the 1st of July and being applied for the rest of the year.
Exactly.
Why pick this year? We're still in a pandemic. People are still suffering with the financial implications. There's still a lot of job uncertainty. Was it absolutely necessary that the city take it on board in this year's budget, the 2020-2021? Could it not have been delayed 12 more months? I think that's probably how some of the parents are feeling.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. The daycare contracts work from July to June, unless and the city works from January to December. So they're a bit offset in that sense. Don't ask me why, I don't know. But it's so the department wanted to make sure that before people signed up for their next contract that they knew what the level of service was going to be. And it's not like they proposed those cuts just off the cuff. I mean, there was, if you look at the report, there was an evaluation done pre-COVID in the month of February, where that's where you have your inclement weather, you have traffic jams, you have the study wasn't done for July, or August, where half the people are on vacation, they're not using daycare. So they use a COVID month, we're going to call it a COVID month, like last March, I believe it was, that they used, and the month of March the year before. So which
To try and compare and
No,
contrast.
exactly. I mean, and so, because you need to make a comparison that actually makes sense before you make a recommendation to council. So, and of the adjustments that were made, I mean, there's 4 of them, I believe, in total. So, some of them, I mean, if you want to discuss some of them, that's fine. But I mean, like the general one was the hours of operation, right? So that was one of the questions that we got. You know, why are we reducing our daycare by 1 hour, half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night? So they looked at the stats, and so when are people when are kids being dropped off, and when are they being picked up? The majority of the people that are affected with this change, you know, are already dropping their kids off 10 minutes to the 5:30 and to the 6:30 in the morning, and close to 5:35 in the afternoon. So the change for them is a bit, I would say, minimum, right? And there's always some leeway when there's inclement weather, or if there's a big traffic jam or a big accident on the 174, because that happens all the time. I mean, the department's not going to throw your kid out the door. You know, there's some understanding of, you know, situations where, no, you need to stay a bit later to make sure all the kids are being picked up. You know, so that was one of the changes that people didn't like. But again, it affects a very small portion of the users, and that small portion, most of them already drop them off very close to those hours of operation that we want to. And it's, if you look everywhere around, that's the hours of operation that are for the municipal daycares. So it's not like we're doing something drastic that nobody else does, right? We're just adjusting to the reality of 2021.
As you say there about that one, the opening hours, was it ever considered? I mean, obviously, as you say, the city is very fortunate in the sense that rent isn't paid, because it's actually, these daycares are held in schools anyway, so very fortunate position in that front.
Yep.
But was an option ever considered of maybe leaving 1 or 2 with those longer hours? I mean, we are a very big commuter city here in Clarence Rockland. A lot of people still do drive into Ottawa for it, and as you say, inclement weather, etc., throughout months can affect some of the delays. So was that an option? Was that just not feasible?
Well, which one do you pick, right? Yeah, we have 8.
Yeah.
So you can't pick a daycare and say, okay, well, this daycare is open until 6. Then you have the other daycares, rightfully so, saying, hey, why not? Why them and not us? So, you know, and like I said at the beginning, we have 8 daycares with very probably 8 different situations. You know, so 4 in Rockland, 4 in the rural sectors. So traffic is traffic for everyone, right? So.
Absolutely. Well, André, as I said, I don't want to dive into too many of those details anyway, because I'll go over that with the administration. Like, we're going through more the process here anyway. So we have covered a lot of that, and the understanding of maybe where, and some empathy from your part as to where some people's frustrations are coming from, as to how this decision was actually arrived at in general. So obviously, this is a conversation that's not over. It never will be, because at the end of the day, we are a democracy, and there's a bunch of people here who can always have their comments. So if you have any further questions for the administration or the department you would like us to relay on, please do get in touch. And André, thank you once again for coming out and having a chat with me. I mean, it's not as warm as we would have hoped it would have been after our last conversation, but much warmer than the show.
I'll take this over -25, and I think your 2 cameramen probably agree with me. So it's
some big thumbs up behind the camera there. So André, once again, thank you very much, and thank you very much for watching.